Following podcast contains mature content. The views and opinions expressed by the host are not necessarily those of the host. Listener discretion is advised.
Yes. What's up, people? What's going on? Welcome back to the Havoc Hour. I had to have a nice little special disclaimer for the special episode we have this evening. I am your host, Wreak Havoc, as always. And today is a little bit of different episode because, as we know, we talk sports and entertainment. Today is going to be leaning on the entertainment side because we have a long overdue discussion that I must have here. Now, we're just a few months away from one of my all-time favorite franchises coming back to the big screen. In October, we will see Halloween Kills, the sequel to the rebooted Halloween back in 2018. And so this prompted a conversation that I've needed to have for a little while now. We're going to be talking about the Halloween franchise today. And right off the bat, there is no one that I could think of that I needed to have this conversation with more than my first guest, who has been on the show before. It's the second episode. So I need to properly introduce him since, everyone else has been getting their intros. So, ladies and gentlemen, coming back to the Havoc Hour, the host of Smacking It Raw, I'm going to get to that in a second. The host of Smacking It Raw, the CEO of The Love Below, the head honcho in charge, the HWBIC of Smacking It Raw, the warden, Matt Ritter, a.k.a. the Prince of Pornhub.
What's going on? Not bad, Reek, not bad.
There you go.
See, here's the thing. It was a great intro. I don't feel the passion that you have for when you give Katie her intro. Like, the passion's not there. I understand you're not my advocate, so I get why the passion's not there. But it's just not the same.
I've been ranting because I just got off with TC, so I don't have the juice as I usually do.
Oh, between Katie and I'm sure we can get your juices back up.
Oh man, well, that brings me to my next guest, who is making her first appearance on the Havoc Hour, gracing us with her presence, the Rookie of the Year and the franchise of the Smack Raw podcast, the one and only Miss Katie Bebe.
What, Matt?
Where's the third rock from the sun that revolves around doors and shit?
The sun around which all other podcasts orbit.
Exactly. Where's that at? See, you
don't
have the juice.
I told you.
He's off his game. It's okay.
I ranted. I got all my energy out. It's rough. I will get you guys on another show. I promise you.
Halloween H2O sucks. Let's get you back up.
Oh, why'd you do this? Okay. All right. So let's jump into this. Let's jump into this here. So I actually want to start off with this because I was thinking of it last night. So we're all in a little slightly different time frames and years. How were you guys introduced to Halloween?
I was introduced through my mother. My mom, growing up, loved horror movies. Not so much now. Strangely, she liked to scare me. So she loved watching horror movies because it scared the shit out of me, and that brought her enjoyment. And she hates when I tell people that, but whatever. So once I started enjoying them, she lost the enjoyment of like putting these movies on and terrifying me and my little sister as we grew up, and then kind of lost her enjoyment from them. Like, she still loves the classics. She still loves Halloween and everything. She grew up on that. So that's really where I was introduced to it. Was my mom. We'd go to the video store. And for those of you who don't know, children, there was a store that you could go to where you'd walk in and they would rent you movies, VHSs. They were cassette tapes. And then eventually DVDs and Blu-rays before Netflix came around and put everyone out of business, except for Family Video, who just sprouts up here or there. But yeah, no, so we'd go to the movie store every Friday, and my mom would always go in the horror aisle, and she'd pick something new out, and we'd watch something every Friday, and that was kind of like my introduction to horror movies in general, but Halloween was always her favorite, so that's really where it started.
How about you, Katie?
I remember watching the first one. I was probably way too young to watch it. Just with my mom, I think we had the VHS. So I happened to just come downstairs. She was watching it. I was like, I'll watch this. That's fine. Scared the shit out of me. Again, I should not have been watching it. But that kind of like got me, like it got me introduced to horror movies. And like I told Reek, I haven't seen them all. I'm just kind of here to see what happens between the two of you. So I'm kind of just here, is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, well, we are two passionate fans, so.
I mean, you're here to laugh and respond and give your input on what you have seen. So, you know, you do have value here, Katie. Don't feel like you're in value or you're not valued. You do bring a value to the table, especially
Thanks.
someone who isn't as familiar, because now as I explain things and Reek can explain things and you may not be familiar with them, you can be like, oh, that sounds really cool. Matt's right. Or, oh, that sounds terrible. What the hell are you talking about, Reek? Like,
That's true, but I'm going to win this.
I like that you put yourself over both times.
it's not, it's, see, there's nothing to win. There's not really, there's only one debate. And the debate is going to be between, I believe, what you believe is the best sequel to the original Halloween outside of the 2018 movie, which we've mentioned, and then what is my favorite sequel of the series and the reasons behind why. That is the only real debate. But you and I both love the Halloween series. It is my favorite series. It always has been. Along with, I mean, it's number one for me, but obviously I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I love Friday the 13th, stuff that you and I will probably get back together and talk about a different time. So we have an intimate knowledge of things in the series that we can bring to this and share with some of the listeners who might not know as much as we know about the franchise, or, you know, say some shit. And then guys like D-Rod, who thinks he knows everything, who might actually listen to this and be offended he wasn't invited, can run his mouth. Because that's what D-Rod does, is run his fucking mouth.
Yeah, I don't think I haven't watched documentaries for a movie as much as, or movie series as much as I watched for this movie. And it's crazy to think, because, you know, my introduction is probably the most traumatic, and it's crazy because up until I was about 12 years old, this fucker right here was my greatest fear in life. I shit you not, because I was about 5 years old the first time I got like an introduction. It's Friday night. I'm hanging out with my cousins. The usual routine was we went down to that nice little video store, which ours was Blockbuster, and we go rent some video games and maybe a movie or two for the night. So I'm in Blockbuster, and I was already a scary kid, so I like tried to stay away from the horror aisles and stuff. But they had this particular, you know, remember how they made that one cover for the original movie that was like holographic and it would switch from the pumpkin to the face? So I saw the pumpkin on one step. I'm like, okay, that looks cool. Probably a horror movie. I'm staying away from it, but whatever. I took another step, turned my head, and when I looked back, I saw the fucking face, and I got chills in the worst way possible. It was like, I don't even know. Like, I'm just like, what the hell is that? And I just took off running, went back to my mom. I'm like, I'm staying over here where it's safe now. So, like, from that point on, it was like nightmares, and just like it was a trigger thing. Like, it was to the point where I literally watched it. I inadvertently watched like the first 2 minutes, give or take, of this Halloween 2 without even realizing what it was, because I got into it right at the point where like the credits were kind of done and it was going through the pumpkin where the skull comes out, and then it just goes straight to the POV shot. So I don't know what the hell's going on. I had the volume all the way down because it was late at night. I wasn't supposed to be up. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, okay, maybe I'll grow some balls and watch a horror movie if it's not what I think it is. And then sure enough, you know, he goes into the fucking house, he takes the knife, and they go cut to the other screen where he's standing by the door. I'm like, no, this is not okay.
At what point did you actually grow some balls and then begin to enjoy horror movies?
So it was like a slow, gradual process, because the very first horror movie I ever watched was Scream.
Okay.
I watched that on Christmas.
God, you're a fucking child.
Like 97, I want to say.
Yeah.
Because it was out on VHS. So yeah, it was around Christmas time, and my cousins put this movie on, and I'm thinking, you know what, I'm good, I'm cool, I'm fine. It's no big deal. I must have got halfway through the movie, and I'm like, I can't do this no more. I gotta stop. And I had the worst nightmare that night. I was like screaming my ass off. But like right around the time I was like 9, I got over that, and like it's like year after year, I chose like another different franchise that I was gonna try and sit through without pissing myself. When I finally got to Halloween, I was probably like 13, and I was like, all right, this is like the worst one for me. At some point in time, I'm in middle school now. I got to man up. I got to deal with this. So I actually bought the original movie, and I sat right in this very chair, and I just put it on and I watched it, and I'm like, it's actually a good movie. Probably still gonna struggle with this one, but whatever. And then by a year later, I was just like was going down the list of the rest of the movies. I'm like, okay, this is like hooking me because I knew a lot about the movies, but it was just like because when I first like saw that fucking cover, this was around the time H2O came out, so all like the promotions and stuff was around for it, and I'm just like, this is so bad, this is so very bad, but I got there. It took a while, but I got there.
It hurts me to hear how young you are.
I'm younger than him, so
I know you are.
I'm just gonna
So,
keep my
like,
mouth shut.
The thing is, I'm on the same timeline as you, just like a lot earlier. So I say it was generally around 5 when I was really kind of, I feel like I was introduced to horror movies, including Halloween, maybe a little bit younger, and then it was probably around late middle school, early high school where I switched from like being scared of them to actually really enjoying them and getting into them, and probably getting into them more than I should have, which was weird in high school where, you know, I'm the creepy kid that likes fucking horror movies, but also people like me, so go figure. I got a story for you though. So one Halloween, as you know, as a Halloween fan, every year on AMC they have the Halloween marathons with 2, 4, 5, 6, blah blah blah. Now H2O, Resurrection. So every Halloween that's on, and we would always go to my grandma's house, and we would go trick or treating with my cousins and stuff. And one year, this dude was taking his daughter around dressed as Michael Myers. And my mom saw him. And I guess what he was doing to not scare the people at the door is his daughter would go up to get the candy, and he would like stand on the side of the house and just kind of keep an eye on her. But also, if you're out there, it's Michael Myers standing on the side of a house.
Oh, my God.
So my mom goes and talks to this guy and says, hey, when your daughter comes up to get candy, can you be at the door too? So the doorbell rings. We'd already done our trick-or-treating. I'm all excited. So I run to the door to go hand out candy. And I open up the door, and there is Michael Myers just standing in the fucking doorway. And I damn near pissed myself. I, just like a cartoon, fucking skidded to a stop, turned around, booked it back down the hallway into the kitchen, slid underneath my grandmother's island behind the chairs, and just sat there terrified. Probably, no, guaranteed I was crying. And my mom thought, like, she came and comforted me, but she also thought it was the funniest fucking thing in the world.
Oh, man, that's terrible. Yeah, no, like, I think there was just something about the grown-ups and wanting to scare the kids, because, like, I remember, like, being, like, 5 years old. We went on this it was a haunted hayride, and it's like all the stuff was like tame for the most part. They had like, you know, spider webs that people would get caught up in, and like little stuff of people falling off the truck. But like the very end was some dude that just ran up. He had a hockey mask on. He just runs up and jumps on the fucking hayride, you know, swinging the knife around. I'm like, that was some traumatizing shit. I'm like, why are we here, and why am I doing this right now? Like that was bad. That was really bad.
Well, I've got way more stories, but I'll save them for specific episodes when they're apropos, based on the characters that we're discussing.
Gotcha. So, right off the bat, I think there's no debate here. First one, the original, the classic, best one by far. I don't think it's even close.
I have 2 favorite movies of all time, and it's a toss-up between them, but it's Halloween and Tombstone are my 2 favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, without question. So the question comes in the sequels. So I'm actually torn slightly because I love the first sequel, because it really just, if you really think about it, on paper, it's just one giant movie. The sequel is part 2 because it's all happening over the course of 24 hours. If you're counting the first night, that he comes back. I like that format, and it was just it's the closest thing to the original. So I always loved that. But the big one for me was H2O, because for all the criticisms I have about it, we talked about that.
Well, we will. We didn't talk about it for everyone else. Well, everything that was said in the group chat needs to be said again, because none of that matters, because now we are talking about it and the people need to hear it.
Okay. Well, for starters.
Well, no, tell us why you like it, okay, and then we'll kind of go from there. Because I do want to get into my thoughts on the second movie, and so on and so forth. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. For as much as I'd say this, that, and the third about it, it's like this kind of return to form more than the previous movies leading up to it had. Bringing back, I don't think it would have worked if you didn't bring back Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't think it has the same effect. But it was just more of, the concept from the original movie that made it great. We just modernized it, and it's like you now created kind of a direct line to the two of them getting back together, having that big reunion, and now it's like you see Laurie kind of evolve from being that frightened girl in the first movie who was just being chased around and stalked throughout the whole night to, okay, she's facing down her fears. She's, going head on against Michael, and it comes down to the end with him getting his head cut off and all this shit. It's like I could appreciate that finality to it, and considering what we got in between, I was like, I kind of prefer this personally.
Okay, so let's talk about 2 first. I enjoy 2 for one reason and one reason only. For whatever reason, the hot tub therapy scene in 2,
I knew that's what it was going to be.
No, strangely enough, because the first pair of boobs I probably really saw in a movie was probably the original Halloween, but the one that stuck with me the most, for whatever reason, was the one from 2, where the girl's sucking on her and biting on his finger, and then he, fries her face in the hot water. But for whatever reason, that is the scene that's always stuck with me, as like what I remember as the first time I remember boobs. So there's that. But the issue I have with 2, and it didn't really come till later. So you said you've watched documentaries. I've actually read a book. And what I've come to find out is that not only did John Carpenter not want to write a second movie, but the whole fact that Laurie Strode is Michael Myers' sister was something that he came up with drunk, trying to justify what was going on. Laurie Strode was never supposed to be Michael Myers' sister. He did not want to write this script. He wanted nothing to do with it, and he was just trying to come up with something. And he's like, fuck it, she's his sister. That's your big surprise for the movie. Wow. That was never intended. That was never supposed to be a thing, which is why in the movie that you and I both love, 2018, it is retcon that she was never his sister. Right. That's why part 2 is cut out of that, because John Carpenter, advised on that movie and probably told the writers, if they didn't know already, I never wanted that to be a thing anyway. I just did that because they made me write another movie. Yeah. So that put a sour taste in my mouth on part 2. For the fans who don't know, in my opinion, if you take out the Rob Zombie films, there are essentially 3 timelines, or alternate universes, as I like to look at it for my brain, because canon is very important, which is one of the reasons I hate H2O, and we'll get into that in a second. You have 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, because, Reek, why is 3 not a part of that franchise?
So, the thing is, and I'm not surprised you brought this up, John Carpenter did not want to write a sequel to Halloween. Halloween was only ever supposed to be Michael Myers' Halloween was only ever supposed to be a 1-story arc, and it was supposed to be the end of it. He was going to kind of go forward with like an anthology type of series under the banner of Halloween, but he was going to tell different stories. And that's why it ended the way it did with Michael disappearing, and like at the end of that movie, Loomis kind of just looks not concerned. He's just like, okay, so you're out here somewhere, and the mystery just comes about. So Halloween 3 it's called Season of the Witch, is an entirely different story about an Irish toy maker or mask maker, makes a bunch of Halloween masks on Halloween, but it has a very dark meaning to it because his objective is to kill the children of the world essentially on Halloween because of its sacred roots that is, in Celtic religion.
Interesting. That might come back up later.
So yeah, it was meant to be. And truthfully, in my view, when I look at it without the expectation of seeing Michael and just enjoying it for the movie it is, I actually really like that movie. Like, and
the song is catchy as fuck. The Silver Shamrock song,
right?
Is fantastic.
It really is. Like the only thing to me that was like threw me off was the whole old drunk doctor sleeping with the victim's daughter who's like barely legal. But I mean, it is what it is. It's the 80s. Shit was weird back then. But no, it was a departure because John Carpenter wanted to do other stories that wasn't involving Michael Myers, but neither he nor anyone else knew where this was going to take off to. So he made this movie, and it was not well received. And it's just like that's why we got Michael returning in Halloween 4, because no, Michael Myers wasn't working for these fans. It took off.
So back to my point. This was always supposed to be an anthology series about the holiday of Halloween. It was never supposed to be about Michael Myers, but the first movie they made that didn't feature Michael Myers bombed, so they brought Michael Myers back, which gives us our first timeline of the first, second, fourth, fifth, and sixth films. Then there is the H2O story arc, which would be 1, 2, H2O, and Resurrection, which is also a knock against H2O. And then the final timeline, which is just the first movie, and now the most recent movie, the 2018 Halloween, and then will be added to with Halloween Kills this year. Halloween H2O. So again, I was old enough to kind of understand that when I walked into the theater and Jamie Lee Curtis was on my screen as Laurie Strode, that she was supposed to be fucking dead, because the previous 3 movies before that told me that she was dead, and now she had a son, and now they're not talking about her daughter who also was killed, or that she ever had a daughter, or her grandchild who's just out in the wild. And I've got all of these questions that aren't asked, and then it's like, oh, they're just pretending those 3 movies that, mind you, this came out in 1998. The last movie came out in 1996 prior to that. So for 2 years, I was ingrained with Halloween 6 being the last movie. It's not like there was a long gap between Halloween 6 and Halloween H2O to where I could just fucking forget about Jamie Lloyd and her child that's out there in the wild and all of the stuff that went on, Tommy Doyle, all of this. Like, I didn't have a long time to forget about it. So I'm like, where are all these people? Oh, they're not here. Oh, they're just pretending that doesn't exist. That pissed me off. The reason that Resurrection exists, which I believe you believe is the worst movie in the franchise.
Oh yeah. Well, okay. before a certain sequel that Rob Zombie made.
Yeah. But we're not going to talk about the Rob Zombie sequels right now. So,
yeah.
Original franchise, original canon, COD canon, whatever you want to call it. It's Resurrection, right? Resurrection doesn't exist if it's not for H2O. The whole reason Resurrection exists is because they had to fix the ending of H2O where they chopped off Michael's head. Because again, you keep trying to kill off this character, and then you have to find ways to bring him back, and it's always some convoluted bullshit.
Yep.
And what else can you do now after 3 movies with Jamie Lee Curtis but apparently kill her? Put her in a mental institution and kill her off, because do you really want another movie of Michael chasing Jamie again?
If she's going to be in the movie?
Yeah, yes and no. So I'll defend Resurrection later, because there's some good points in there, and I feel like it's slightly Overhated. The masks. Let's talk about the masks.
Oh God.
You said they used 3 masks in this film, correct?
They did.
And one of them was decent?
Yes, one was decent.
Yeah. So 1/3 of the masks used throughout the entire film was decent. There is a terrible mask, a god-awful mask with blacked out eyes and no definition that is used in some fairly pivotal scenes where it's very obvious, especially now in 2021 with like HD TVs and 4K and shit. You're like, what the fuck is that? Is that Michael Myers? Like, it's fucking bad.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. There are other terrible masks in the franchise. 4 and 5 don't have the best masks. But H2O has the worst masks. 2 of the 3 masks in H2O are the worst masks.
Well,
I will take paint on a mask in Resurrection over that bum ass, no definition, fucking alien mask that they stuck him in.
You knew exactly where I was going.
I know exactly. So, my favorite movie in the franchise, which Reek will discuss why he doesn't like, is Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And the reason for that is in my opinion, this is the best depiction of Michael Myers because this is the most brutal depiction of Michael Myers. This is the most violent Michael Myers that we've got throughout the entire series, and it is an enjoyable Michael Myers. This is the most I don't give a fuck. I'm killing anyone who walks my path, and I'm going to have fun doing it. He literally walks into a room full of doctors who are supposed to be his loyal subjects and slaughters the fuck out of all of them for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
Like, this is a bad, he's killing fucking people in a mental asylum, just walking through cells, stabbing people for shits and giggles. Like, this is a bad man. Yeah. The movie opens up with him grabbing a nurse by the head, lifting her up with one hand, and shoving her head into a spike.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Then he kills his niece. Then he tracks down her baby and spends the rest of the movie trying to murder a baby because he gives no fucks. Also, the reason why I love the 4, 5, and 6 story arc, you can say what you want about the cult. We will talk about the producer's cut, which is a different thing. Counts but doesn't count because they did add some extra shit in there, but they gave Michael a reason for being Michael. Don't get me wrong. The idea that Michael Myers killed his 17-year-old sister and then 15 years later broke out of prison, went home, and some poor girl just happened to go drop mail off at his house, and he saw her and said, hey, now I'm going to kill you, and stalks her through a town to kill her is great. When you add in that it's his sister, who was apparently 2 years old, who apparently did not even exist in the movie because his oldest sister was babysitting him and was too busy having a 3-second fuck with her boyfriend to take care of him, which is probably what led to his anger in the first place. Because that sex scene did not last long. Like, they went upstairs and like 3 seconds later, he was putting his shirt back on, coming downstairs, and she just brushing her hair topless in the mirror, waiting to get stabbed. Like, she was not satisfied whatsoever.
The entire scene is a one shot with the camera. So it's like in maybe 10 to 12 seconds, you go from outside the house into the house, dude's coming downstairs.
So here's my thing. When you factor that in and you say, okay, so now as of part 2, this is his sister, and she was 17 years old. So he killed his 17-year-old sister. Now he has another sister, and she's 17 years old. And then you get to H2O, and they're like, oh, you know what would be really cool? If he had a nephew who was also 17 years old, and now is when he decided to come back to... So he just doesn't like the number 17? Like, that is the motivation of H2O, is that he just doesn't like the number 17, and every time someone in his family turns 17, he gets really angry and tries to off them. That is what you are telling me is the better story for why Michael does what he does. Whereas when I tell you that he is a cursed child who has a demon who plagues him, fueling him with anger, making him indestructible until he finishes the sacrifice that he has been inflicted with of murdering his entire family. And as the years go on and this torment from this demon inside gets stronger, his powers grow, which is why throughout the films there is a progression of him getting more violent, more angry, stronger, and being able to handle more and more punishment with no selling it, wrestling terms. From this mark of the thorn, from this curse, I have the mark. From this curse, that is what drives him. That to me is a far better story told over 5 movies than, hey, I really don't like 17-year-olds.
So that's a fair point. I don't like the idea that a certain age number triggers this guy. But see, I never looked at it. My viewpoint of it has always been, I look at it from the standpoint of what the initial idea, the pure initial idea of Michael was ever supposed to be. He was never supposed to be this, a random killer who has anger issues and stuff like that. His credit in the movie, Nick Castle was credited not as Michael Myers, as the Shape. And that's why that's one of the things I remember with that dude. We got into the argument with over Twitter about who would be a better killer over Jason and Michael, because Michael was never supposed to just be this just person. He was boundless. He wasn't within the realms of regular human beings, because it was always like, well, he can appear and disappear like that. He doesn't have to chase you down. He doesn't have to run. He will see you here, you'll run off, and he'll be waiting in the car for you like he was for Andy. It's like, that was the concept of the Shape. He is not bound by the metrics of normal human beings of time or space or anything like that. That's why you can stab him, you can shoot him, you can throw him off a balcony, he'll get right back up and keep going, because he's a supernatural force. And so when you take it from that perspective, and it's like, okay, he did kill his sister as a child, but then he just goes completely blank. He doesn't speak. He barely blinks. He just off into the distance. So this births that force. And that's where Loomis, from like the time he's in his care, he's like, no, there's something about this kid that's just not right. It's why in the version of Halloween that comes on like NBC at one point, they have like those deleted scenes where he's standing in front of the court and he's telling them, it's like, he can't stay here because it's minimum security. This is going to be a problem that you guys aren't going to be able to handle. They don't understand it. And he goes back to the room and says, oh yeah, you fooled them, but you didn't fool me. So I'm going to be watching you this whole time. He understood what no one else did. That force within Michael that just makes him different. So and he comes back, and it's like he just spends the whole night just offing people, and no matter what Laurie does to him, no matter what Loomis does to him, he does not die. And he cannot be tracked, or you can't get away from him, you can't run away from him, you can't hide from him. He literally appears out of the dark behind Laurie, as if to say he doesn't need to, he can be like gliding at this point. He doesn't have to like go anywhere in particular. But that was the concept of him. And the mystique of that, to me, I could appreciate. And while it is a better idea to say, okay, well, he has a curse that drives him to do this, that, and the third. Initially, when I first saw it, I was like, okay. But then when I looked at the two of them side by side, I'm like, because I don't want the answer to it. That's what, honestly, that's what kept it going so long. It's like, well, what kills him? Why doesn't he die? Why does he kill? Why does he kill this person? It's like, I rather keep those questions open than say, oh, give me all the answers. I know this, that, and the third. I never liked that.
So what I don't understand is how, by saying that he is the Shape, he is all of these things that you talked about, and he is that way because he was cursed, takes away from him being what he is. in any way, shape, or form. It's still a child that is born, that is boundless, that is the shape, that still does all of these things. It is still all of that. It's like saying that you don't want to know that Goku is a Saiyan. You don't want to know how Goku does the things he does. You just want him to do these things. But does it hurt to find out that he has Saiyan heritage and blood? Does it ruin the movie or the show in any way, shape, or form?
You like reading my mind. I was literally gonna go there. I'm like, it's just like I don't it's not that it's a bad thing, it's just like I don't need to know. Like I don't need to know the secret sauce that makes Goku, progressively get stronger and stronger as he goes on. It's like, okay, you told me so I know, but I don't need it.
See, now that's where I disagree, because for a story to have this many sequels, for a franchise to have this many sequels, you need to progress. You need to do something. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again. For example, Jason Voorhees was never supposed to be a hockey mask killer. He was supposed to be a little boy who drowned in the lake. But to create sequels, they made him the main focus, and they gave him his signature hockey mask in the third movie, and they moved on with that, and they created a mythology behind him to keep it going. Things need to evolve. If Michael keeps coming back and doing these things, and you never find out how or why, and it's just movie after movie of him chasing Jamie Lee Curtis around because you want to cancel 4, 5, and 6, so we erase that, and it's just 1, he's chasing Jamie Lee Curtis around. 2, he's chasing Jamie Lee Curtis around, but it's his sister, but also we don't know why he hates his sister. 3, he's chasing H2O, he's chasing Jamie Lee Curtis around, and it's his sister and his nephew, but again, we don't know why. We'll take the 17-year-old thing that they added in out of that because that made it really fucking stupid, which brings me back to H2O. You continue to do these things, and it's like, okay, how many movies do you get out of it? You don't get, maybe 3, maybe 4. You don't get, what do we got? 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't get 9 films, out of it from that, if it's just him stalking this one woman over and over and over again, which is why it was great that they switched to Jamie Lloyd, who was her sister, or her daughter, which is why it was great that they told that story. Now, I have issues with 4, or I have issues with 5. 5 is actually my least favorite film. The mental link that they made between Jamie and Michael bothered me. I didn't like that. I thought that was weird. And there's a scene in 5 where they're in the house and it's at night, but you can see sun coming through the windows, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, where's the continuity director? Stuff like that bothers me. There's also stuff about 5 I love. Like, I love the whole farmhouse kill scene and all that. That's all great. You also never, how he's the shape. Okay, fine. But you never find out like how he's able to track down his sister when she moved to California.
Well, that kind of goes hand in hand with it. It's like he can be wherever, whenever,
but he's not being whenever, wherever. He drove to California. He stopped at a rest stop, stole some chick's car because he fucked up somebody else's car. Now, mind you, he did stop at the nurse of Dr. Loomis's house. I don't believe that Dr. Loomis would just be leaving an address for a grown-up Laurie Strode with her name change, just sitting at his desk. But that's also my Dr. Loomis from 4, 5, and 6, where he carried on. He was not in H2O. So now H2O's Dr. Loomis makes Loomis look stupid because he's just leaving info around, knowing Michael's out there, apparently not worried that this guy's going to come and find it and go after Laurie 20 years later.
Maybe he kept it just in case, so that if he needed to find Laurie.
And there was no instruction to the nurse that, hey, when I die, just in case Michael shows up, maybe burn all this shit.
Couldn't tell you.
My Dr. Loomis was a paranoid motherfucker. My Dr. Loomis hated Michael Myers, wanted to see him dead, would not believe this man died for anything. It could have been 20 years. It could have been 40 years. If Loomis was still walking around or in a wheelchair, Michael is still alive. He is not letting it go, and he is not giving any information. So the curse being added into the story and the drive to kill his family and these supernatural powers helps explain how he is able to find and do these things. And also it helps that most of it still takes place in Haddonfield because these people are all stupid and don't just move out of the fucking town.
Yeah.
They all stay in the same town and they all move into the same fucking house.
Yeah. That's kind of dumb. That's really kind of dumb. But I mean, well, for one thing, none of this works without Loomis. I mean, from start to finish, that was the perfect foil to this character because he had such a unique understanding of him from day one that no one else did. And having him in part 6 kind of it warmed me up to it at the end of the day, but I'm just I at some point inevitably you have to give some context for what he is and why he does what he does. So it's like I know that's going to come at some point. Do I need it personally? I don't, but I can see it. 4, 5, and 6 just had too much that didn't continue. Like you mentioned the little telepathic thing that they had, whatever it was, when she touched his hand and suddenly she knew where he was. If they continued that into 6, I might.
She died at the beginning of the movie.
Well, yeah. For it wasn't long.
And then the only person that could have carried it on was the baby. But since we're going to talk about 6, I'll let you finish. But let's talk about the producer cut after.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was that, and I don't know. 5 just had this vibe to it that it didn't quite. It's like the revenge title kind of fit more for 6 because of what you were saying. It's like it was way more brutal. It was way more intense for Michael. And 5 kind of just felt like, okay, well, he killed off Rachel because she got rid of him in part 4, and then she kills Tina. But it's like, and the whole.
I don't think he killed Rachel because she got rid of him in part 4. I think he went looking for Jamie. And again, Rachel just didn't move out of town and was living in the same house. So he just went back to the house that Jamie was at. And Rachel's there in a towel. I was very disappointed we never got to see Rachel naked. Teased the shit out of me.
That's a good point.
Don't shake your head. You like boobs too.
Very
And
true. Very true.
So don't shake your head. So here's my thing. I get what you're saying, and I agree. Like I said, part 5 is probably my least favorite in the franchise. The reason I like 6 over H2O is I enjoy a mythology. Like one of my favorite things about Mortal Kombat was when they came out with Sub-Zero mythology. Like as they expand on the characters and I learn more about them and their mythologies, I enjoy that. I'm into mythology. So the more you give me about Michael Myers or Jason, or when they brought in the dream demons that possess Freddy's head, like I'm interested in that because that expands the story. It gives me more. It creates more of a myth around these characters, which is why I love those first 3 sequels over the H2O stuff, which, as I said, ignores all of that stuff, gets rid of all of that stuff. And to your point, you said you wanted things continued. Doesn't continue anything. Just erases shit from history like it's the fucking WWE and they decided that it didn't work anymore. So we're just not going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it doesn't exist. We're going to change the story. That's why I originally really enjoyed the producer's cut, because I had seen 6 a million times. As I said, it's my favorite sequel, and it's my favorite version of Michael Myers. And it's probably my favorite sequel because it is my favorite version of Michael Myers. I'm not going to say it's the best written film. I'm not going to say it's the best acted film. But because Michael Myers is the central character, and this is my favorite version of him, that is why it is my favorite film, because it's the only place I get to see that version of Michael outside of the way he is in the new movie, which was also equally as brutal, which is also why I love the new movie. But the producer's cut added to that. Now, it also added some very weird things, like the fact that Michael's nephew is also his child, and it was an incest baby, and that he fucked his niece, and made this baby. And then they brought in the runes, which made sense, but also was weird. And it was like, how do you stop Michael Myers? Well, if he's born of a rune and a constellation, then you use good runes to block bad runes. And it got fucking weird. Don't get me wrong. Like at first I was intrigued. I'm like, oh, this is a whole new layer that I hadn't seen. This is really fucking cool. And then I watched it again and I'm like, maybe not. It's great that it's a movie that I love that has like 43 minutes of shit that I had never seen before. But I also understand why there's 43 minutes of shit that I had never seen before, because a lot of it either wasn't good or you really couldn't put on TV. Like, can't really come out and say, hey, Michael Myers fucked his niece, had a baby, and now he's trying to kill his child. Though they did kind of make it seem like they were trying to make the child Michael's successor, but also sacrifice him. So
I don't know. It just, honestly, a lot of that is probably what like took me out of it, because I watched the producer's cut not long after I saw the original, which is probably a mistake. And it was just like,
you're a fucking child.
No, it was just like I see it and I'm just like, what the hell? And then the ending where, you know, Tommy goes and puts together one of those rooms that just stops him dead in his tracks, so now he doesn't move. I just like,
but he does, because he ends up killing Wynn, leaving Wynn in there, and escaping somehow. I think Wynn kicks the runes out of the way as he gets into the circle, breaking the circle, allowing Michael to move again. And then you see the transfer of Wynn's mark to Loomis. That was cool. I thought I enjoyed that. And Loomis screams. But again, so you said you couldn't really continue the story on, and that's again where I disagree, because now if you leave Jamie Lee Curtis dead, and we don't go H2O, you've got Michael Myers' nephew. We're going to ignore the producer's cut retcon version where it's his child, who's still out there. So Michael still has a family member he needs to hunt down and kill. And you also have, and Tommy's out there. So again, fucking Paul Rudd, who blew up years later as a fucking actor that you could have kept on the franchise and really utilized and made funny and entertaining. You have that, and then you also have the Strode child that is supposed to be Michael's successor, who still hears voices, who still has tendencies, who, if in the next movie somehow Michael is defeated, could take up the mantle and continue on. There was a way to continue the story and keep going with the mark, with, you know, so on and so forth, and really not even losing Michael, because you still have the kid pick up the mask and the jumpsuit and the butcher knife and carry on the mantle. You may lose the name, but you still have the look, you still have the power, you still have the story. The only thing that you don't have is now he doesn't have any family members to kill other than his mother, so on and so forth. So all of that needs to be looked into. But there was a way to continue that story without going back to Jamie Lee Curtis, pretending she didn't die. And I even tried to like correct this in my head, where it's like, all right, so maybe Jamie Lee Curtis faked her death because of Michael and got rid of her daughter at this age and sent him to live with the Strodes, and then later on met a guy and had another kid. And I tried to do the math, and the math doesn't work out, where she could have gone away and had this kid that ended up being 17 with Jamie and all of that, blah, blah, blah. And like, that's how it like, I tried to make it make sense, because then you could have done something really cool, which, by the way, speaking of not continuing things from H2O, where the fuck is Josh Hartnett's character? And why isn't Michael still tracking him down in Resurrection? Why do we just kill Jamie and then say, oh, fuck my nephew again?
He's part of the family.
It was one of the reasons he supposedly came in H2O to fucking, like, she's like, oh shit, it's my son's 17th birthday. He came after me on my 17th birthday and killed my sister on her 17th birthday. Oh shit, like, where the fuck was Josh Hartnett? Like, where was the character? Like, and I understand that's why you hate Resurrection. And I think Resurrection has some good points, but also from a canon standpoint, that bothered me, because right now we could be watching a franchise, even though I love 2018, I wouldn't trade it for the world. where Jamie Lloyd's son and his uncle are traveling around America, either hunting down or running from Michael Myers as he chases these two around fucking Winchester style from Supernatural in a nice fucking muscle car. They're hanging out, doing shit, having fun, running from Michael, or trying to hunt Michael down and kill him and be done with the curse forever.
That was what that was one thing from 6 that really I was into, because it's like the arc from Tommy. It's like, okay, you were traumatized as a kid because this killer shows up, and then you spend basically the rest of your life at this point in time. It's like you kind of have that clairvoyance like Loomis, like he's alive somewhere, he's coming back, and you spent all this time kind of just obsessing over when he'll be back, and you were prepared and all this other stuff. Okay. As for the successor thing, if you were going to do that, I would have preferred, it would have been the greatest twist if they had just pulled the trigger at the end of 4 and said, okay, Jamie's got the bad now. She could potentially be a killer, but it's like they just backed off of it in 5, which is another
and then
issue
gave them a psychic link and made it seem like Michael made her do it, and then she stopped talking but learned how to talk again, which, by the way, so here's my thing with 5 real quick. Like, if you stop talking, I don't feel like you have to relearn how to speak completely again. I just feel like you still know how to speak. So, like, the whole big cookie woman, like, no, you just say, she's at a fucking gas station. Like, the bitch is at the gas station. There's a giant woman with cookie tits. Go to the gas station with a giant woman with cookie tits.
I hate that they made it seem like she lost her voice. My first thought was that, okay, she lost her voice, or like something happened with her vocal cords.
They made it seem like she had some kind of mental health issue. Like she was a normal kid, and then all of a sudden was not.
Like she just started
mentally all there.
She wakes up in a mic. She can't scream because she can't use her voice. Like that never made sense for me. And then like you see him waking up, and you start writing on the chalkboard and stuff like that wasn't doing it for me. Like if you were going to have this link between the two of them, then why not keep her bad? That was my thing. But we didn't pull the trigger on that. And I got so many issues with 5. It's ridiculous. The clown cops and
the noise track for the clown cops, which they also do on Friday the 13th, when there's like dopey cops for some reason. They've got like dopey music, so you know the cops are fucking stupid.
Yeah. And then the second Michael, the boyfriend Michael, that whole thing there where he just kills him, he takes his mask, and he's driving around with Tina. Like,
I kind of wish there was a scene where like Michael got a blowjob because she thought it was the other Michael. Like he just got roadhead and then killed her after the roadhead. That would have been fun.
It would have been better than that, because it just like because what do you expect? You expect she's gonna take you to Jamie, or like?
I want to ask Katie a question, but I feel like it's an uncomfortable question. So,
here we go.
Do you want me to ask? Okay, so
sure.
This literally just popped into my head. So let's say you've got Michael Myers, and then she's got her boyfriend Michael, right? And she unzips his pants and she pulls his dick out. Like, can you really tell? Unless, I mean, obviously, if it's like a completely different, like if she pulls out a black penis and it's a black guy, like you're gonna know, hey, that's not my boyfriend. But like, do you really pay attention to the details of like? Would you notice it's a different penis? I feel like you would. Like you'd have to. It would be a different size, more than likely, possibly a different shape. Like I feel like you'd have to know that's not my boyfriend's penis.
I feel like you would have. I like that. This is exactly where this is gone. I feel like you would have to know the difference. Like, especially, like, if you've been with other Michael for so long. Like, I feel like you would have to know.
It's also dark, though, too. Like, middle of the night.
Still, like, okay, I doubt Michael Myers is circumcised. So, like, what if other Michael was circumcised, and then all of a sudden you pull out a fucking anteater, and it's like, wait a minute. something's not right here. Like, there are things you can tell, Reek. Like, the penis is not gonna be different. What if it's all of a sudden 3 inches bigger and it's like, this doesn't feel right. I can barely get my hand around it. Like, or maybe Michael Myers is a tiny one and that's why he was so angry all the time.
I mean, you never know. You never know. You know what that makes you think of too? In the very beginning of 6, where they're listening on the radio and there's this chick that's like sexually aroused by Michael.
Yes.
I'm like, that's so random as hell, but it's like, what possesses you to think that a man who literally piled on double-digit bodies in one night, let alone other nights, what makes you think that would work exactly?
I do like the 90s shock jock that is in the movie that ends up getting murdered. The fact that they added that in, because that was kind of a staple in the 90s. You had your Howard Sterns, you had your Mancow Mullers here in Chicago, so on and so forth. So these shock jocks were a big deal. So to have one in there and have him like take these calls and kind of be the catalyst that kind of carried the story along is like, that's how Tommy heard about Jamie calling. That's how he knew where to go find the baby. That's how, Michael kind of got back to the house and knew that they were going back. Like, that was a nice little thread and an entertaining character to bring in Murder, because the guy was a fucking jackass.
Yeah, he was. And initially, I heard that Howard Stern was supposed to play that role, but I guess apparently he's like just said, hell no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Are you changing headphones? Was I not supposed to mention that?
No. I had to switch headphones because these just died on me.
That happens.
No, but yeah, it's not. I don't. My gripe is not that I disliked 6. I did like it. I was just like, when I invested so much in thinking like, man, this is like the one particular movie monster / killer that you don't have the formula to or the answers to, so to speak. It was like when the bubble bursts, it's like, oh shit.
So,
and like,
no, go ahead.
And the thing was too, I kind of knew it was coming, because it's like that wasn't the first time they dabbled in, ancient Celtic stuff, because that's what they did with Halloween 3. They had Stonehenge, and they were using that in the fucking mask, which the way they did that was just fucking, and that's why I like the movie. It's like, that was just so bizarre in how they did that. But yeah, it was one of those things like you could kind of see coming. But
let me ask you this: which Michael is your favorite Michael outside of the original, obviously?
Oh, sheesh. I did kind of like 4. It was between 4 and 6, to be honest, because 4 was slightly, I would say, like just below 6, because he had there was that more hulking figure, and he could see. I think they said he had on like a bodysuit and stuff like that underneath the jumpsuit.
I hear you. What bothered me with 4 was like his shoulders were fucking up here and he had no neck.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, I think because like I don't know. They said he had on like a bunch of different stuff on underneath, which I don't get, because George P. Wilbur was clearly a pretty tall guy on his own. But yeah,
I got to meet Nick Castle. I got to meet George P. Wilbur. I met I believe it's Tony Moran from 5. So I've got to meet a few Michael Myers, which has been really cool. Got a few autographs around here. Here, I'll pull this one off real quick. Maybe. Nick Castle.
I love that pic.
Cool.
So, I'll defend Resurrection for a second and not too hard, and then we can talk about why we love the new movie and we're excited for it. It's your show. Unless you got something else you want to talk about.
Nah, we are good right here, bro.
All right. So, again, I believe that when we got to Resurrection, there was nowhere else to go but kill Jamie Lee Curtis. You couldn't keep her alive. I didn't need a whole other movie of him chasing her around, Home Alone style, her setting traps, trying to kill him. Like, she chopped the guy. She thought she chopped the guy's head off, and now she's traumatized because she finds out that the person whose head she chopped off wasn't her brother's, but was a medic whose throat was crushed and apparently doesn't know how to pull a mask off, who was in distress. But so there are glaring issues. For one, there's a scene where all of the kids are in the room watching what's going on. Yeah. And then in the next scene, like there's only 3 people in the room, and one of the kids who was in the room in the last scene comes in and says, "Oh, hey, are you watching that Michael Myers thing?" And it's like, dude, you were a scene ago, you were just here watching it with him going, "Holy shit, what's going on?" Like, so again, continuity issues. That's on whoever is the continuity checker for the fucking film. I have an issue with you. But the idea of capitalizing on reality TV, which was at the time really a big deal, and making it a thing. I mean, and having it live stream on the internet. I loved Busta Rhymes in this movie. Like, say what you want about Busta Rhymes in this movie and him doing the karate and how he did this to Michael and he did that to Michael and blah, blah, blah. He also got fucked up by Michael. Like, he did a roundhouse kick to Michael's face and it didn't do shit and got fucked up. So, like, I really...
If it wasn't for Busta, I probably would never have finished it the first time, to be honest with you.
From a comic relief standpoint, he was great in that aspect because he was funny as shit. One of my favorite parts of the movie is him grabbing the fuck's her name? The main actress in that film.
It's Bianca something. I can't say her last name.
Yeah. And he's like, "Everyone's dead. We got to get the fuck out of here." Like, I fucking love that line. I love him watching fucking Kung Fu in the fucking hotel room and then being like, "Who's this fucking knocking on my door late at night fucking up me watching some Wai Chung Lee kick everyone's ass?" Like, I enjoyed the shit out of that because that gave the backstory for, like, he loves Kung Fu, which is why he does these roundhouse kicks and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. So I like the concept. I like the idea behind the reality TV thing because, yeah, if he hasn't been there for 20 years, as far as anyone knows, the house is empty, no one's going to buy it. Why wouldn't you take a crew there and film this guy? And he's out of the house while they're setting everything up because he's over there killing Lori and going to find her at this mental institution. That's why they never ran across him up until the day that they were supposed to start. And they were able to put all this stuff in and set all this stuff up in his house. And of course, he's going to be pissed off when he comes home and there are a bunch of people running around his house fucking with shit, changing shit around. Like, he's trying to chill in the basement, eat his rats, have a nice life. So there are good parts of Resurrection to me. Overall, second worst movie of the franchise, in my opinion. I often don't. I count Halloween 3 as a side thing, because Michael's not in it. While it is technically part of the franchise, I don't include it, and it's got a cult following, and it's grown on me over the years. Where I actually, like you said, looking at it as its own thing, I do enjoy it. So 5 is my least favorite. For multiple reasons, and then it's Resurrection, and then it's H2O. And H2O and Resurrection are really fucking close on that tier. For all the reasons I talked about.
That's fair. I can see that. Oh, we talked about mask and didn't even mention the blunder in part 4, where they took the original Shatner mask before the white paint job, before dyeing the hair, and apparently that was the first mask they grabbed for that shot. They put it on him, and when Loomis bumps into him, that's what we see him wearing.
With the blonde hair?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the kid that dies, which I believe was the same kid that Laurie Strode had a crush on in the first movie, who ends up getting hit by a car and is dressed just like Michael Myers, in 2, has the blonde hair mask on. Yeah. I don't get that. Like, how do you, like, why would you think that that's him?
Well, I guess
he's been hunting him all night. That mask had blonde hair. Like, I don't know between blondes and brunettes.
By the time Loomis got there, the kid was in flames already, so I'm not sure he could see the hair. But yeah, poor fucking Ben Tramer.
I did forget that in 4, Michael Myers did murder an entire police station, slaughtered an entire police station.
Yeah.
But then got taken down by a bunch of drunk rednecks with shotguns.
I thought that I loved it and I hated it because it was like of like that's all you had left in the town outside of one station full of cops was just a bunch of guys in a bar protecting their rights and just riding around shooting whoever the fuck they deemed a threat, including some child that was hiding in the bushes. Like, I mean,
you could remake that movie now and stick Trump flags on the back of their trucks.
Oh my god, like that just
bumper stickers.
They opened the door for that, unfortunately.
Make them all from Wisconsin.
You know, the eating animals thing was crazy. What's funny is I had to go back and watch the original because I watched, unfortunately, the second zombie sequel the first time, and I saw it like he kills the dog and starts eating him, and I'm just like repulsed at that. Like, what the hell? And then I went back and I watched the original when Brackett and Loomis go in the house and they say there's a dog on the table and it's still warm, and he says he got hungry. I'm like, oh, so this has been a thing. You've been gnawing on animals since the beginning.
Yes, since the first movie, but I mean, in the end, it's just man's got to eat, and it's not like he can go to the grocery store and walk around and fill up a cart and pay and walk out. You kill what you can kill, and when you're in a suburban neighborhood, it's not like there are deer or anything just floating around, so you kill a dog and you eat the dog. Like,
I always kind of felt like he had this weird fetish for killing dogs. It bothers me.
That's the one thing that I don't like about him. That's the one thing, because he kills Annie's dog, or I'm sorry, Lindsay's dog, the German Shepherd, that Annie's babysitting, chokes that poor thing out, and that still breaks my heart every time I see it.
Killed both of Jamie's dogs.
Yeah,
that's fucked up. And I didn't even realize until like just a couple years ago that Lindsay actually reappeared in 4, because I sat there and I watched it a bunch of times, and she kept saying Lindsay, and it never dawned on me like this is 10 years later. She had to be about like 8 or 9 years old, give or take, in the first one. Like, that makes perfect sense, especially when Tommy comes back 2 movies later. I'm like, okay, I see that now. That makes perfect sense.
Yep. 2018.
Breath of fucking fresh air, I swear to God.
So the reason I loved this was because, again, now that we retcon the whole Michael Myers is the sister thing, and we get back to the original point of the original film, which is just you happen to stumble upon the wrong fucking house, and then you kind of fuck the dude up, and now he's holding a grudge, and he's really pissed off, and when he gets out, he's coming for revenge because you stabbed him in the eye, and you stabbed him in the shoulder, and you got him shot off a balcony, and so on and so forth. But also the homages throughout the film to kill scenes from all of the other movies and scenes from all of the other movies. Like, I mean, the bathroom scene is very similar, even though he ends up killing them and it gets really brutal, to the bathroom scene from H2O, where he walks in and they're in the stall. And you've got even the whole scene where he's walking through the town and he walks in and to the old lady's house and takes the knife, and then he goes into the girl's house. Like, that whole thing is in part 2. Like, there's even killing the cops. Again, the 2 dopey cops from 5 that he kills. Now he kills 2 cops in a cruiser, but he uses one of their heads and makes a jack-o'-lantern out of it by shoving a flashlight in the severed head. So many great fucking callbacks to other movies where it's like, yeah, we're going to erase them, but we're also going to give you what was in them to kind of bring back the whole opening, just the opening where I saw the orange lettering and the credits. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so happy this is back.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like they, because I read before even going to see it, they had a callback to every single movie. It's just like, that's beautiful. But it's like they just went back and did so many things that made the first one good. Because like that scene where he was walking through the town, it's like that whole scene was one shot. There was no single camera cut. He literally went from the street where the kids bumped into him back into that house, took the knife, killed the lady, went through, he stopped. I thought he was going to kill a fucking baby. The fact that he's stopped in the crib, and I'm like, no, you're not going to fucking do this right now. But from there, out the door, back onto the street, down to like the next car, and into that house, behind this lady that's on the phone, like, that's just good cinema in general. But it's like for the purpose of this movie, it was like, that was beautiful. There wasn't, I couldn't really find much that I didn't like about the movie, outside of the fact that I don't know what the obsession was with trying to hear him speak. It's like, he doesn't talk. I don't know what you guys are harping over so much.
So it goes back to what we talked about, the difference between you and me. My whole thing is, I want to know why Michael is the way he is. And that's what these podcasters wanted to know. And the only people that can tell them are either Lori or Michael himself. So you have to try and find a way to get him to speak so you can get those answers. You prefer Michael to be this mysterious character who doesn't talk. So it's like, why the fuck do you want to hear him talk? Just let him be who he is. Yeah. Me, on the other hand, I completely get it. What the fuck are you doing and why are you doing it? What is the reason? Why did you kill your sister? Why did you chase Lori down? Like, what set you off? What happened? What caused this? You know, how did you learn how to drive in the first movie?
Oh my God.
Who taught you how to drive? Like, these are the questions I want answered that they were going to get. And it was a great way to set up him getting the mask, following them, finding out, you know, where they need to go, because they had Lori's address. They had the mask. They had all of these things. So once he did kill a kid. He didn't kill a baby, but he did kill a kid.
Yeah.
That really loved to dance.
And that's why I got scared, because I'm like, this dude just choked out a fucking kid. If he kills a baby, I don't know what to say.
I love that they didn't make the kid gay, but it's just like, this kid doesn't want to go hunting with his dad. He just likes to dance. And he's like, Dad, I really like dancing. Like, I'll go hunting with you on the weekends or whatever, but I just love dancing. Like, let me go dance. And like, I love that they're showcasing kids who are just like, this is who I am and this is who I want to be. Also, the kid that's being babysat is the funniest part of that fucking movie.
Oh my God.
If you were a good babysitter, I wouldn't be sitting up here late clipping my dirty ass toenails on the couch. I heard you talk about smoking weed.
Oh my God.
I'm going to tell your mom about your browser history. No, you're not.
The kid was the MVP. And then when Michael, this is the first time I've ever seen this. And it actually was like what would happen in real life. Michael shows up. He says, oh, shit, I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. It just takes off running. Like, that's smart.
And then wants to protect the babysitter and tells the boyfriend, no, you go.
Right. No, you go. It's like, you go up there, you're going to get killed, babe. Yeah, this was honestly a perfect blend of like the old school and the new school. So I was very happy. Everything from like you said, from the very beginning, the going back to the classic, the orange opening credits, and the pumpkin kind of like resurfacing, being brought back to life after it was like dead. Like everything about that just caught me.
Where I'm worried is how Michael escapes from the fiery death trap that he wasn't stuck in. So, Katie, have you seen this movie?
I've seen parts of it, yeah.
Okay.
I know the ending. But...
Okay, I don't want to ruin anything for you, because it's a really good movie and you should go watch it all the way through. But
yeah,
like he's trapped in the basement and it's a prison and it's on fire. So like I'm worried about the logic and how he escapes, because like there are these blades in the floor that are keeping him from going up the stairs. And it's a basement with concrete walls and shit. So it's not like he can just walk out of a wall. I also loved how they took the Michael-Lori dynamic and they reversed it, where Michael's hiding in the house and Lori's stalking him. and Laurie's the one that falls from the second story, and then he looks down and she's gone, and then she comes out of the darkness and stabs him.
Love it.
They did a really fucking good job with that movie. Like, they did a great fucking job with that movie.
Yeah, they did. And she connected too. Like Michael kind of grazed her, and she still had the mark from back then too. It was like, yeah, it was just.
She actually does in H2O. I will give them that. She still has the scar in H2O on her arm from where Michael got her with the knife.
That was true.
I did, because I told you I've been going through and watching what I consider to be the 4 major horror movies franchises in Hellraiser, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Halloween. And I started with all of their first movies and then all of their second movies, so on and so forth. Now I'm to the point to where I'm like at Freddy versus Jason. There's really nothing else to watch but Freddy versus Jason. So I did notice that in H2O. I'm like, all right, that's a nice little detail. She still got the arm scar. At least they paid attention to that point because that's important. I'm really excited for Halloween Kills, man. Like, I really don't fuck this up because you did such a good job with the 2018 movie. Like, don't fuck this up. You set the bar really high for yourself. So, like,
they seriously did. And the thing is too, it's like it just looks so much more brutal now. And like it gives me like the original Star Wars, you had A New Hope, and then Empire Strikes Back was the one that was really dark. That's the kind of vibe I get from this. It's like this is gonna be one that like really digs in. So that alone tells you like you can't mess this up because it's gonna set the tone for the third movie.
I also, if I remember correctly, and I believe I do, the 2018 movie has the highest kill count of any Halloween movie.
I don't even know the exact number. And it's funny too because I watched the Kill Count series on YouTube. I've watched that like for pretty much every horror movie series I can. I don't even remember the numbers, but I'm pretty positive that had the most in a single movie.
I know Jason has the highest overall. I believe this definitely brought Michael up to around number 2 if he wasn't already there, but I do believe this has the highest kill count, though it is hard to tell because, again, he slaughters an entire police station, but they don't tell you how many people are in the police station.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of guess. And he does it twice. He does it in 4 and 5. Well, no. Sorry. He does it 4 and 5. Fucking, what's his nuts?
Wynn. Dr. Wynn.
Yeah, Dr. Wynn is the one doing
guns everybody.
Yeah. So that's not him. But, yeah, in 4, he kills an entire police station. And same thing in 6. Like he murders all those doctors, but how many doctors were really in that room?
I don't know, but it looked like a fucking lot. I actually, for as much as I seem like I wasn't big on 6, I love that scene where he goes. First off, he goes and picks up the longest knife fucking possible, and then he just goes in and like it's like the lights keep flickering on and off, and you see another person just slam up against the wall, getting stabbed, and it's like. That flash in slow motion, he's picking the knife up, and like that's a beautifully shot scene.
Yeah, he kills the douchebag Strode father.
Oh my god!
Down in the basement.
Oh, that I couldn't have been happier for that one because I'm just like, of all the people who needed to die,
it was you.
Yeah. But I mean, this is. I like where they're going with this. I especially, in particular, I like how they kind of really detailed the story of the PTSD with Laurie because it's like they kind of did that in H2O because she's still having nightmares and she's still fearful, but it's like more, just paranoia. In this one, it's like she has a fortress at her home. She's got all these weapons that she's preparing for. She's got dummies outside that she's practicing on. It's like she's just been suiting up for war, like Sarah Connor in the Terminator. It's like she knows that Judgment Day is coming, so she's just strapping up and preparing herself for an inevitable showdown. It's like this really kind of got into that, and then she shows like this strained relationship with her daughter over it. Like,
dude, the scene where Kara Strode is standing at the bottom of the stairs and she's screaming for help from her mom. She's like,
Yo.
Mom, I can't do it. And Michael comes around and she just goes, gotcha. And dude,
I legitimately clapped during that
Oh.
scene, bro. I
Oh.
was like, fucking beautiful. I love that.
You learned something from Mom. Good job, kid.
Right. Yeah, man. That was good shit. That was great shit.
And again, this Michael is just as brutal as the Michael in 6. I mean, he curb stomped dude's head.
I don't know what he did, but I've never seen a jaw unhinged like that. And he takes his fucking teeth. When I saw that in the trailer, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be fucking beautiful. Because he just drops fucking teeth at her feet. Like, I've never seen him do that.
And that was so that whole scene, that was the throwback to 4, where he's in the mechanic shop with the bandages on his face,
Yep.
and he kills the mechanic and takes the mechanic's clothes, which is how he gets his jumpsuit back. Like, loved that, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy behind the counter, and then, like you said, the teeth, but also the doctor. When he kills the doctor, he just crushes the doctor's head like a fucking pumpkin.
Oh my god! First off, I love the twist too, because when he they run Michael over and he gets out of the car, I never in a million years saw that coming, where he takes the knife out and stabs the fucking cop. I'm like, wait a minute, like, because that gave me like the vibe of like 6 a little bit, but I didn't see it coming, because it's like he was kind of supposed to be the Loomis figure in this movie, but then you kind of later find out it's really kind of Laurie.
Yeah.
But it was like, that twist was beautiful. I'm like,
no, he was more Wynn than he was Loomis.
yeah. But you had no idea.
Yeah. The only thing that disappointed me from this movie, and it's a very, very small nitpicky thing, is the douchebag boyfriend who cheats on her at the fucking Halloween party, gets away scot-free, but the poor fat friend who just tried to capitalize on a weak moment gets slaughtered.
It's it's worse because it is the douchebag of a douchebag kid, or of a douchebag father, because Lonnie Elam was the dickhead that was tormenting Tommy all the time about the haunted house. And so his son just happens to be a douchebag who cheats on his girlfriend.
Which is another great tie-in to the first movies.
Yep. And too, like, the costume that she wore, that what's his name's girlfriend wore at H2O, like, everything just tied in together so nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, Katie, which of these movies did you watch, and have we swayed you enough to get you into the whole series?
I'm gonna watch them all. I'm trying to remember what I actually told you. I didn't see 3, obviously. 5 or 6. I know. I mean, you swayed me now because it sounds fucking awesome. I didn't see H2O, and I didn't see the newest one. Oh, I saw parts of the newest one. I didn't see the entirety.
So you didn't see his favorite sequel. You didn't see my favorite sequel.
Listen.
You saw Resurrection.
You saw Busta Rhymes.
Listen, that came on when I was in a hotel room, and I was like, there's nothing else on TV, so I watched it.
Shout out to fucking the Halloween franchise for not killing the black guy.
Honestly.
LL Cool J lives. Busta Rhymes lives.
Which I got scared because they shot him.
I was gonna say they did kill Omar Epps, so like he didn't make it, but they had 2 black guys, so.
That's true. Yeah, I was like, I got scared, like, because you just see him come up there and he shoots him. I'm like, oh my god, you just killed LL Cool J. It's the '90s. You're in fucking trouble.
LL Cool J is the baddest motherfucker in horror movies. He survived not only Michael Myers, who Busta Rhymes describes as a great white shark, but also survives a genetically engineered shark.
Yeah. Which Samuel L. Jackson didn't survive, apparently.
Not at all. Not at all. Also, that is like my favorite like bad horror movie. Like, I don't know why I love that movie so much, but I fucking love that movie.
I have no idea why, as a kid, I was scared to watch it. I guess, well, I do know why, because the first time I ever saw Jaws, it traumatized the shit out of me. So that kind of set a bad
Were you
precedent
one of the
already.
Were you one of those kids that would get in a pool and then freak out because you were worried that there were sharks in the pool?
That's the thing. I never got scared to get in water, but I saw Jaws one time and I'm like, nope.
See, I don't fuck with sharks. I told my wife I do not go in the ocean. I will swim in any body of water you want. I will not get in a fucking ocean because I do not fuck with sharks.
That's fair. That's fair.
Oh man. Oh, this was good. This was really good. You guys got anything else?
I got nothing else for this one. When we do Friday 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, we got plenty more to talk about. Hellraiser. I got a lot to say about Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Oh, you know what? That might be the next. I actually was watching the original the other day.
That might get me canceled.
No, I mean, well, I'm not as bad about those movies, but yeah, that's something we can get into because we definitely got to do another one of these. I mentioned too. TC said he wanted to do if we do Nightmare on Elm Street. So we might make this a little a thing, a little like nice little get together, and do some discussions. Because
have you watched Never Sleep Again?
I have not. I know what it is. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
Before we do the Nightmare on Elm Street discussion, and it's like 4 hours long, so you got to dedicate some time. But you need to watch Never Sleep Again because it is Katie, it's a documentary that covers the entire Nightmare on Elm Street series, from the first movie to the Final Nightmare, Wes Craven's Final Nightmare. So it doesn't do the remake. I believe they touch on Jason Goes to Hell, or not Jason Goes to Hell, Freddy versus Jason. So it might go to Freddy versus Jason, but it's really cool because they go in depth in like how a lot of the special effects were used, where the stories came from, and the ideas of the directors and what they want to do behind it. There's interviews with all of the actors and some of the famous lines and everything from all the movies. So that is like one of my favorite documentaries for horror movies is Never Sleep Again. So I definitely recommend checking that out before we go back and talk about those.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely, it's crazy. I've never actually seen it before, and I've seen all the movies. That was what I almost forgot. Because we were talking about Laurie getting killed like in the first 5 minutes. This was the only gripe I had about that was that if you were going to kill off your central figure, I would have been like, just do it the way you did it in Dream Warriors, where, you know, in the very, you know, when it comes to the end, it's like you have all your other characters, but Nancy dies at the end.
Yeah, but I mean, she didn't fit into the rest of the story that they told. And I actually really like Laurie's death because it plays into the end of the last movie, your favorite sequel outside of the most recent one, H2O, where now she has to double check to make sure she's killing the right person. She has to know that this time she's not killing the wrong person. This time she's really killing her brother. And that's what leads to her downfall. The first time she didn't give in. She said, fuck it, and just chopped the head off. Come to find out it wasn't him. So now she's got to take the mask off and make sure it's her brother. I don't know how she knows what he looks like under the mask to verify that it's her brother.
Didn't think that through.
That's true.
Neither here nor there, because the only people that have seen, well, she's seen Michael without his mask in the first movie, and Jamie Lloyd has seen Michael without his mask in the fifth movie. But also, it was 20 years later. He probably looks a lot different than he did in the first movie. So...
Ooh, that's another thing. That's another thing I hate about 5. I really genuinely hate, and you know why that is. Like, you can't get shot in both of your fucking eyes, and then just because it's 10 years later, you take off a mask and your eye is perfectly intact with no issues to the point.
Mind you, also got stabbed in one, so
right. It's like, but your eye is perfectly fine, intact, no issues, and you can shed a tear. That, that pissed me off. Yeah.
No,
you'll see.
In 4, 5, and 6, he definitely should have been blind. I will give you that.
Right. Which they made it look like he was in 4 because the eyes were completely blacked out. But it's just like, you can't do that shit. You can't do that shit.
But he has superhuman regenerative abilities. He was burned alive and was able to, in a healing coma, through the power of the thorn, regenerate his skin tissue and his sight to be able to drive forward to go chase down Jamie Lloyd, Laurie Strode's daughter, and murder her as one of his powers that they gave him via the curse of the thorn. And that is why it took him so long from the time that Jamie was born and ended up with Strodes to after he was killed in part 2 was he was in a healing coma. He was in a coma regenerating with his powers. It's kind of the same thing like at the end of 4 and 5 where he is in a slight regenerative coma healing all of those bullet wounds after floating down the river and being found by a hermit. I felt really bad that he killed that hermit because, like, dude, like he got you out of the river, he patched you up, he healed you. You didn't kill a baby. Why are you gonna kill this guy? I would have let the hermit live. Like,
I didn't feel bad for him because who the fuck told you to nurse this random guy that basically accosted you in the middle of the night? And unless you're
all shot up and hurt, I understand that. Like he's in a state of shock. I would attack someone in the state of shock too.
He's got some mask on. It looks sketchy. There's bullet holes
Halloween.
all over him. Clearly, nah, I'm not touching that. I'm a black man. I don't touch nobody that's been shot. But, yeah, I'm not giving you the regenerative thing. You know why? Because who was in the exact same proximity of him to that explosion? Loomis. Are you telling me Loomis has regenerative powers as well?
I mean, we find out in 6 that Loomis is also linked to the Thorn and is the successor of Wynn. So I would say yes.
Producer's cut, though.
Well, yeah, but the producer's cut was the original version that was retconned later.
Yeah. Nah. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. I will not accept it.
It is also one of the major when I've done many arguments about who would win in a fight, Jason versus Michael Myers, and that is one of the things I bring up is he has regenerative healing coma powers, whereas that's why Michael has never died. Jason Voorhees has died and then been brought back to life. He is a giant walking, talking zombie with super strength. He's a super zombie. Michael Myers has never died because, like Wolverine, he has regenerative powers. They're just a lot slower.
Fucking preach. I get so sick and tired of having this conversation because I said the exact same thing. Everyone else physically has died. Literally everyone. Even Freddy at one point physically died. Michael's pulse never once stopped. He was never officially declared dead. That has never happened.
Leatherface technically hasn't died as well. But Leatherface is just, well, we're not talking about that. Jason Voorhees technically died in the lake, and if you want to believe that he didn't die and he crawled out and survived on his own and then became a grown man that looked like fucking Harry from Harry and the Hendersons in part 2 and blah, blah, blah. He died in 4.
Yes, he did.
Which
lightning bolt brought him back to life. So yeah.
First time he died was drowning in the lake.
Yep.
Second time he died was part 4. He, again, like you said, in 6 was brought back by a lightning bolt to the chest.
Mm-hmm.
He died at the end of 7 with the girl with the psychic powers.
Yeah. that was a little different. And technically, well, I thought at the end of 8 too.
8's weird. We got to talk about 8.
Yeah.
8's really fucked up, and I hate 8. He died twice in fucking Jason Goes to Hell. He was blown up and then reborn and then killed again.
Yeah.
Technically, if you count all of the people that died that his demon blood was carried through, then he died even more than that. Right. And then he was dead in Freddy versus Jason and brought back to life by Freddy.
Yeah.
Jason can die. Michael Myers can not be killed.
Well, we're going to say at the moment because I don't know how
until there is a movie Until there is a movie that he is officially killed in, Michael Myers cannot be killed.
Which I don't want to see, but I think at this stage, if they so choose to do that,
There are two more
guess
movies,
I'll
and
be okay.
at the end of the second, there's Halloween Kills, and there's one more.
Yeah,
At that one, I'm fairly certain Michael will be dead.
and I'm not going to be totally okay with that, but I mean, I guess eventually it has to happen at some point.
Has to end sometime, Reed.
But we don't. Nobody wants that.
This was much more than a Havoc hour, by the way.
I know it definitely was, but I anticipated that, and that's okay. But I thank you both for coming in, even though Katie was more of a spectator.
This was very fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. But we've got to do this again. But before we get out of here, both of you guys, please tell us where to find you both and the amazing content that you both put out. Whoever wants to go first.
Ladies first.
Thank you. After we come back from hiatus, which again, I don't know when that'll be, find me, youtube.com/smackdrop podcast, twitch.tv/putting you over, twitch.tv/smackdrop podcast, at smackdroppod on Twitter, audio everywhere. Yeah, that's really it.
We are a wrestling podcast. We're the #1 wrestling podcast on Pornhub. You guys can find me on Twitter if you want to come talk horror movies or wrestling or various other things. At Matt Ritter, that is at MATTRIDDER. Also, you guys can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/group/Smacking It Raw. On Twitter at Smacking It Raw Pod. Vince has a Instagram for us, which is also at Smacking It Raw Pod. Go check that out as well. Link trees at Matt Ritter will get you to the Pornhub, to the YouTube, or to the audio versions of our podcast. So if you are a wrestling fan and you want to hear me talk wrestling like you just did, hear me talk about horror movies, but with a lot more sexual innuendo, go check that out. Yeah, that's it for now.
How does Vince still not have this down? After
He got close.
He got real close. He got close till he got to the Facebook, and then he's like, "Oh fuck."
So I'm
But I
happy we
enjoy
don't
it.
have that many.
It's fun because then I can be like, "And you're done," and then I get to take over.
Yeah, that's one of the things to look forward to now. You guys can find me at Recavity24 on Instagram and on Twitter. You can find the show on Anchor, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, and you can find the video version of this, which will be much more entertaining and better on your eyes, on YouTube as well. You can go check out the page on Instagram at _the_Havoc_. To my guests, Katie, Matt Ritter, thank you guys both for joining me. This was great. We will do it again. But for myself, with no co-host still, this has been the Havoc Hour with Wreak Havoc. Thanks for tuning in, if you're still on at this point. And I will see you guys next time. We'll be talking sports because the NBA playoffs are here. But stay tuned for that. We'll catch you guys later.